Hello and welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be making my homemade meatballs and marinara sauce. Several of you have been asking me for both of these recipes for quite a while, and I'm very sorry that it's taken me so long to get to them, but I'm finally doing them, and I do want to thank y'all for your patience. Now, the ingredients that I have laid out before you are for a double batch of meatballs, but the amounts that I'm going to be telling you are for a single batch, and I will also leave the single batch down in the description below. Alright guys, let's go ahead and go over the ingredients that I've got, and I'm starting with about 2.5 pounds of ground beef. Now you could certainly use a meatloaf mix or a meatball mix here of the pork, veal, and ground beef, but I just prefer an all beef meatball, so that's what I'm going with. So in this bowl I've got 1/2 cup of seasoned breadcrumbs and 1/2 cup of plain panko. I've also got 1/4 cup of dried parsley and 1/2 cup of grated parmesan cheese. The reason that I use a mixture of breadcrumbs and panko is I find that the breadcrumbs tend to make a much denser, drier meatball, and I like my meatballs to be really moist when I make them. So I found by adding the panko into it, it really helps with that, as well as the mushrooms that I'm going to be adding, which you'll need 1/2 cup of finely diced mushrooms and 1/2 cup of finely diced onions. You're also going to need 2 eggs to help bind it, as well as 1/2 tablespoon of garlic powder and salt and pepper to taste. And that is all the things that are going to be going into our meatballs. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and go over this half of the ingredient list, and this is all the things that I've got for my marinara sauce. So I've got some tomato sauce here. I've got some tomato juice that I'm going to use just to kind of thin it down a little bit. I like using tomato juice instead of water when I can, because it keeps that tomato flavor and doesn't water down everything that I'm putting into it. I've also got some canned tomatoes. I prefer to use like the fire roasted when I can find them. Unfortunately, I only have 1 can of them today. The other can I'm going to be using is just a petite diced tomato. If you have fresh garden tomatoes, those work perfectly in this. Unfortunately, my garden tomatoes are not doing well this year, so I'm going to be showing you how I do it when I make it from the cans. I've also got 4 ribs of celery. I'll show you guys here. I've got 4 ribs of diced celery and about 1 large onion plus 1/4 of an onion, just what I had left over from chopping up for the meatballs. I went ahead and threw in here because I do like a lot of onions in my marinara sauce. I'm also going to be throwing in 1/2 finely diced green pepper. I find that this gives the sauce a really good flavor, but I kind of want the pieces to kind of melt into the sauce as it cooks for several hours. I've got 8 ounces of white button mushrooms that I sliced up. These are completely optional. If you don't like mushrooms, don't add these. Definitely keep the ones for the meatballs. It's going to add so much moisture and flavor into your meatball, and I think they're a key component to making these meatballs really good. And the last thing I've got here is some chopped garlic. I think about 4 to 5 cloves. And we're going to need a little bit of Italian seasoning, as well as some salt and pepper. And that is it, guys. The only other thing I have that I'm going to be using that I'm not showing you is in my pan. I've already got some butter, about 2 tablespoons, in both of my pots, along with a little bit of olive oil, just so we can saute up our vegetables. But with all that, let's get over to my stove, and we're going to go ahead and start sauteing our vegetables down. Alright guys, I've got you over here at my stove, and I've already got my butter and oil melting and heating up, and I think they're ready. So I'm going to go ahead in this pan. These are for the meatballs. I'm going to go ahead and dump in my onions and get these starting to soften up and turn translucent. I do have a few mushrooms in there. I was trying to fit them all into the same bowl. Unfortunately, they didn't all fit. But these are going to melt down quite nicely. It does look like a large amount right now, but in the end, honestly, it's not going to be all that much. Alright, in this one, I'm going to go ahead and start the base for my marinara. I've got my onions and my celery going in. And I'm going to go ahead and drop in my green peppers at this time as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and let these start sauteing up. So at this point, I'm also going to sprinkle just a little bit of salt on both of these. And that's just going to allow them to start breaking down a little bit quicker. And plus it's going to add flavor into them. And we're going to be salting the dish later, so we might as well salt as we go. There we go. That looks really good. I'm going to turn my heat up on that one a little bit and let it cook down. And I'm going to let these work for a little bit before I add in my mushrooms. Alright guys, our onions are already starting to turn translucent, so I'm going to go ahead and add my mushrooms in now and let these sweat down. Alright guys, these are almost done and these are completely sauteed. So I'm going to go ahead and drop in my mushrooms now, as well as my garlic, and get these to start working. There we go. And I'm just going to stir these in, and I'm not going to let these cook for very long. The mushrooms will continue to cook and break down in the sauce. I just want to get the garlic started, and I'm going to cook it for about a minute or until it starts becoming fragrant. While I'm doing this, I would like to remind y'all of the Gamers and Geeks playlist that Jacob Death and I have going on our channels. If you would like to be a part of it, it's really easy. It is a community-driven playlist made up of you, our friends and YouTube family. All you have to do is go out and make a cooking video, post it to your channel, and once you've done that, let either JPEG or I know down in the comment section of our latest cooking videos, or if you're a part of our Discord servers, you can let us know over there as well. The only thing we do ask, guys, is that you mention the Gamers and Geeks playlist in your video and leave a link to it down in the description so that we can continue to support all the fine people that have already contributed to the list. And that's it, guys. That's how simple it is to get on the playlist. So if you have an idea in mind of what you would like to do, let us know. And if you need some help with it, you're always free to hit one of us up, and we will be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Alright guys, this is looking pretty good. I think it's ready to start having our tomatoes added into it. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my can of fire roasted tomatoes and just one can of the petite diced that I have. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and add in my tomato sauce, and I'm going to use this whole container. I need enough sauce to be able to cover all the meatballs once I get them browned up, because they're going to continue cooking in our sauce once they're done. There we go. Let me get rid of that and give this a stir. Let me see how much tomato juice I'm going to need. Not really all that much, probably just one of these bottles of it. And this is a 12-ounce bottle of tomato juice. Let me just pour the whole thing in there. Give this a stir, check on it, and I think these are done to where I like them. I'm just going to go ahead and turn them off and set them off to the side to allow them to start cooling down. And I'm going to go ahead and continue working on the sauce here. Let me actually move you guys over a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. Alright, there we go. As you can see, the sauce is still fairly thick, but not so thick that it's going to burn while we're cooking the meatballs in it. And I'm going to go ahead and add in a good pinch of salt, as well as my black pepper. And again, the salt and pepper level is to your taste. If you like a little bit more or a little bit less, feel free to add it in. That way it suits yours and your family's taste buds. Alright, that looks good to me right now. I'm also going to add in some Italian seasoning. And I'm probably going to start with about 2 tablespoons of it. There we go. And see how it tastes and adjust it from here. Alright guys, so I've given this a taste. And I definitely think it needs some more pepper. And definitely a little bit more salt. And some more of our Italian seasoning. And again, the Italian seasoning is to your taste too. If you don't like quite as much as what I've put in, use a little bit less. This is easily tailored to your family. There we go. Let's try it again and see what we think. Much better. Alright guys, this is done. I'm going to go ahead and turn it down on low and let it come up to temperature. And we're going to move on to making the rest of our meatballs. Alright guys, I've gone ahead and put all the meat in my bowl that I'm going to mix it up in. And I'm just going to go ahead and start dumping in my ingredients. I'm going to start with my garlic and my eggs. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of my black pepper in them. And I'm not going to do a lot because I already have black pepper going on in my sauce. And the sauce is going to flavor the meatballs as they cook in the sauce. So let me go ahead and add, I don't know, a good pinch of salt there. And I'm going to add in my breadcrumbs, my cheese, and my parsley. And the last thing I'm going to add into this bowl is my sauteed vegetables. Alright guys, the only thing we have left to do now is to get in here and mix this together. Now if I tried using a spoon, it would take me a lot longer. So I'm just going to use my very clean hands. I just washed them. And I'm going to go in here and start mixing this together. Alright, let's dig in. Be careful if you have not completely gotten your vegetables cooled down like I have. I do like them to be a little bit cooler. That's why I kind of put the eggs away from them. I don't want the eggs to start cooking in with these warm vegetables. But I think with them separated like that, they're going to be fine. And once they get incorporated in with this cold meat, they're going to cool down very quickly. Alright guys, I've got this all mixed together. And now I'm just going to go ahead and start forming my meatballs. And the size that you make them all depends on the dish that you're looking for. If you wanted to use this recipe for like a Swedish meatball or a cocktail meatball, you would definitely want to make them a little bit on the smaller side, maybe about 1 inch. I think I'm going to be doing about 2 inches today. That's kind of the size that I prefer. And I'm going to be putting them down on a wire rack on top of an aluminum foiled lined cookie sheet. If you don't have a rack, you can just put it right down on top of the aluminum foil. I do recommend the aluminum foil in case they stick. It's a little bit easier to get them off your pan than if you put them straight to it. And I did spray my rack with just a little bit of cooking spray just to kind of help prevent them from sticking a little bit. And now all I'm going to do is go through and form all my meatballs. So I will see you when I'm done. Alright guys, I've got our meatballs completely rolled out. And now all I'm going to do is pop them into a 350 degree oven for 20 minutes. Just to allow them to start cooking and to brown up. So I will see you guys then. Alright guys, our meatballs are out of the oven. They smell really good. And now all we're going to do is start dropping them down into our sauce and allowing them to cook probably for about 2 to 3 hours, just so that the sauce kind of infuses into the meatballs and the meatball flavorings kind of infuse into our sauce. And then we'll be ready to try them out. I'm very excited. I do love these meatballs. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these in. I am going to make sure that they are well covered by our sauce. And I will see you in a couple of hours when they're done. I do want to add one little quick note here. If you decided you were only wanting to make a small batch of meatballs for right now, or you wanted to save these for another dish, at this point you could allow these to come to room temperature, and then you could stick them into a freezer bag or a freezer safe container and freeze these. And then you could pop them into whatever sauce you choose later in the week if you wanted like a quick midweek meal. Alright guys, it's been several hours and our meatballs are done. So let's go ahead and get in here, give them a taste, and see what we think about them. They smell so good. And they've held up really well while they were cooking in the sauce. These meatballs really did turn out well today. I love how the marinara kind of seeps into the meatball and kind of just boosts the flavor of what we've already added into them. I really hope you guys give this one a try. If you do, let me know how it turns out for you. If you guys like this video, leave me a comment down below. Remember to check out the Gamers and Geeks playlist. I will leave a link down in the description to it. But as always, thank you all so very much for joining me today. I've been Vault Girl. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I hope I'll see you in the next one.